Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
We want to bring in Brad Lander. He is New York City Comptroller. He represents the New York City Retirement Systems, which holds $2.6 million worth of shares of Disney, valued 2.6 million shares, of Disney shares valued at more than $290 million. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be with you. It's an exciting proxy battle.
So as City Comptroller, you are an investment advisor and custodian for the city's public pension funds. I'm curious as to whether institutional investors like yourself tend to vote early or later. I'm just trying to gauge how much we can read into our reporting that 60% of the votes have been cast for the Disney company as opposed to Nelson Peltz.
Well, our votes have already been cast. So, we're amongst that 60%, and we did vote for the slate supported by Disney management, by Bob Iger. As that quote says that you put up, we are not enthusiastic about Leonard Peltz. 15 of the 22 times he's taken a position on a company's board, 68% of the time, it's underperformed the S&P 500. And look, it's a short-term oriented hedge fund strategy, and we're long-term investors looking at $290 million. That's the retirement security of teachers, firefighters, cops, and school crossing guards, and we want to make sure it's there for the long run.
So Trian has raised a number of grievances. He's pointed out succession issues, how the board has fumbled that, the unprofitable streaming business, and of course a bunch of box office duds as well. Do you share any of his specific concerns?
Well, look, the succession issue is real. We were not pleased with Chapek's time as CEO, and we want to see the transition to the new CEO handled better. But we like the transformation plan that the company has put forward. And look, there's some duds when you run a studio. There's some successes as well, like Taylor Swift and, Marvel and Star Wars. And look, Leonard Peltz has never been on the board of or led a media company. So I don't know what he's going to bring to solving streaming problems or making sure that the next stream of films are successes. Bob Iger's track record is good from 2005 to 2020. Shares were up 579%. And even in this more recent tenure, better than Paramount and Fox. We think this is it needs to improve like they all do, but one that has done well by us.
You mentioned the long-term return of Disney under Bob Iger. The board battle has been, let's be honest, pretty good for the stock as well, because since Peltz has publicized his stake in Disney, the stock has done fairly well, up almost 50%, outpacing the S&P 500's return over that period. Do you think it's been good for the company in terms of sharpening focus?
Well, look, there's two different questions. One, does this push people to do their best to try to make sure they're coming up with good ideas? And probably it does. On the other hand, activist interest pushes up share price, but that doesn't do anything for long-term value. It's probably why it's not a strategy that we are generally supportive.
Whatever the outcome of tomorrow's vote will be, do you think this will mark the end of the proxy fight at Disney, or is it just end of stage one?
Well, I noticed that Peltz has tried to get on the Disney board 24 times already. I think this is the 24th time. So I wonder if he's just looking for a fast pass so he can move through the Disney parks more quickly with his grandkids. I say give him a fast pass instead of a seat on the board. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Obviously, there are those CEO succession issues, and those are important over the next few years.
Has he or Blackwells reached out to you? Has their side reached out to you to try to convince you of their argument to get on their side?
We have talked with the company. We have not talked with Peltz.
Okay, got it. Investors like to compare Disney to Netflix. And if you just look at the fundamentals, for instance, Disney trades at 24 times forward earnings, Netflix at 33 times. Netflix, of course, is profitable with its streaming. Do you think this is a fair comparison?
Well, Disney's got four businesses. They've got a film studio, they've got streaming, they've got ESPN, and they've got the parks. So for the streaming service, Netflix is the right comparison, but obviously you have to, look at other comparisons for the sports network.
Where is the unrealized value in Disney?
Well, look, that's what this transformation plan is designed to find, figuring out how to make sure that your film production and your streaming aren't eating into each other, that you're really getting that value. That's something that the company and really many of these companies are still working on. Look, the Disney brand, there's nothing like it, and how you take that into the next generation. I think the Taylor Swift concert is a great example of that, and how many Marvel films you could put out that'll keep being successful. That's not my expertise.
But to your point, it's not Nelson Peltz's expertise either. So
exactly right. I just don't see anything to indicate that he will add long-term value.
So I want to also ask you, given that your role here as the CFO of New York City, about congestion pricing. The MTA board basically gave it its green light to the city's congestion pricing plan. Is this pretty much a done deal, or are we still in the eighth inning given the outstanding lawsuit from New Jersey?
I think eighth inning is right. I'm really hoping to get to the close. I hope we'll bring in our relief pitcher and get across the finish line because, look, we need that investment in the subway. That's, to me, like partly we want to reduce congestion, and partly we need to invest in a modern signal system, in accessible subway trains, like the mass transit. That is the future of New York City. That's what our economy relies on. These are the resources to make the investments to really modernize it and make it run as effectively as it can.
So the MTA anticipates collecting about $1 billion annually from the new toll. Is this what you would expect as well? Is that what you have penciled in?
That is what's projected. Now, obviously, we have to see where it lands, got to get through the lawsuits, have to see how implementation goes. But yes, about $1 billion a year, which they're going to write about a $15 billion bond investment against. And those are the resources that we need to modernize the signal system. We're still operating on decades-old technology. Our peer cities are way ahead of us here. Safe, fast, reliable mass transit is the key to New York's thriving. And this is a big piece of the investment that will make that work.
Yes, but it will definitely put a lot of strain on certain businesses located in areas right near where the tolling is. Congestion pricing critics will say that small businesses will have to take on this new expense. They'll have to pass it on to their customers, for instance. How do you see this affecting small businesses in Midtown as well as downtown?
Well, don't forget, we already have tolling on the Hudson River bridges. We don't on the East River bridges. So partly there's just sort of a whole set of quirks that right now truck routing is already taking into account. So I think this will actually even this out a little bit. There will be a period of adjustment, but there are many fewer people. Most people just do not drive their personal cars into Manhattan. So look, there's going to be some resetting and adjusting. And look, I'm sympathetic to small business owners for whom this is going to be an additional expense. But you've just got to think about the city as a whole. Everyone will thrive better if customers can get to you faster, if the city itself can keep its mass transit strong, if congestion is reduced. If that was a fair process to consider exemptions, of course people want more of them. I totally understand. But from the point of view of long-term investment in the city, this makes sense.
Brad Lander, really appreciate your joining us today. Look forward to speaking with you again. New York City Comptroller Brad Lander there talking to us about how he's voting in the Disney proxy battle tomorrow, as well as New York City's congestion pricing plan.